not you na, nabili na nga ko ang nabili na nga akong sito gani microphone at home, and I'm here at school. So I'm just using the microphone, the built-in microphone on my laptop. So there might be chance na dili niyo maklarang o ba na akong sulti. Just in case, please let me know right away. Okay? So today we're going to have our course orientation, and later on, since this is gonna be maybe if you're under if you're under my subjects from the past semesters, this would be the third course orientation that we'll be doing, or fourth orientation that we'll be doing. So we're not going to focus more on this. There are just some things that we have to refresh, to refresh our memories regarding our school policies, our classroom policies, etc. So we're not going to focus really on the course orientation. Again, this is just gonna be a a refresh, um, let's say a refresh meeting about what to do, what are the learning, or what are the learning materials that we are going to prepare for our course, etc. And then later on, we're going to have our very first lesson for web development 2. So like I said, web development 2, this is gonna be the second phase, or the final phase of web development. So if you can remember, last semester we focused more on the front end design. We are dealing with writing codes to design our website. This time around, our focus will be more on making the website work, or giving functionalities to our website. But anyway, more of that later on. So to those first time nga ma-under na ako, so again, my name is Juleus or Publico. You can call me Jules. I am a full-time IT instructor here in NORSU Bais. I graduated BS Information Technology in NORSU Bais as well. And I am currently completing my units for Bachelor of Science in Information Technology in NORSU Dumaguete. So if you have any questions or comments or clarifications, please share it by the end of this class. So today, again, this is just going to be a refresher lesson. So today we'll talk about online and modular learning, and then learning management systems. So right now we have two learning management systems. We have Google Classroom, and then backed up with Facebook Messenger. And I'm going to introduce to you our course summary and our class arrangements, and then the course requirements and what are the tools that we'll be using for web development too. So again, learning management system, these are the software application used to plan, implement, and assess learning process. So in other words, they are also called online classroom. And the LMS that we'll be using would be Google Classroom, again, and then it will be backed up with Facebook Messenger. Since most of us, if not all, are using Facebook Messenger, and perhaps it is one way of communicating, or the best way of communicating with you guys would be Facebook Messenger. But anyway, all of our activities will be posted on our Google Classroom. That includes assignments and projects. So in the past semesters, maybe you've noticed wala kita project. So what I usually do was all the assignments would be, or your grade for your assignments will be equivalent for your projects. So that means whenever it is that you grade for your assignment, mo po na imong grade sa imong project. So that's why it's very important not to miss any activities or assignments, because it will also affect your grade for your projects. Later on, I'm going to show you the breakdown of your grades. So for section A, guys, have you joined our Google Classroom already? Naka-join na bang tanan? All right. Okay, that's great. But to those who haven't joined to our Google Classroom yet, please take a screenshot or copy these links. So this would be for section A. Just click that or copy that link, and or you can go to classroom.google.com and enter the class code, this one. That's for section A. And section B, here it is. Again, you can just copy the link, or you can go to classroom.google.com and then enter the class code. So, course summary. So these are the things that we're going to learn for web development too. So again, if you can remember, last semester we were focused more on the front end of web development, meaning we designed or we learned how to design our website using HTMLs and CSS, right? So basically, it was more on the appearance of our website. For web development too, since we've already learned how to design a website, we are going to add functionalities to our website. That means our goal in this course is for us to be able to create a working website. Okay, so meaning working website. Imagine using Facebook, diba? Through Facebook, we can upload pictures, we can upload stories, posts, or we can share um, post from somebody else, something like that. So those are the functionalities of Facebook, right? We can also send messages, like, we can react, we can comment. So those are the functionalities of Facebook, and that's gonna be our goal for this course, for us to add functionalities to our website. So it's very important. If I hope nga naaraman inyong kopya, naraan yung kopya sa inyong website from last semester. I hope, truly hope na alam. But in case wala pa, please try to prepare it so that we can just continue from where we end last sem. We can continue by adding functionalities directly. But anyway, more of that later on. So these are the things that we are going to learn. I would appreciate it if pwede ninyo mo practice na mo on your own and advance. Especially if wala, di pa bita ta face to face, medyo taas-taas pa ang time. Taas-taas pa inyong free time, so you can always learn these in advance. So first is we're going to discuss back-end technologies. We're going to discuss it later on. And then in our next meeting, we're going to explore frameworks. So what are the frameworks? What exactly are frameworks, and why is it important for web development? And then we are going to learn Bootstrap. Bootstrap is just one of the example of a framework. Again, what exactly are frameworks? We'll talk about it in our future lesson. So next is we're going to learn PHP. So far, pila naka-programming language ang inyong nakatunan? Everyone. Upat na ka-programming language. Sige, can you name them? Okay, all right. That's good to hear. All right, but yeah, that's good to hear. But when we talk about programming languages, these are the scripting languages that adds functionalities to an application. So that's good. That's good that you've already had that in the previously. But in NORSU, so far, what I can remember, you were the first students that I've taught with programming one, and if you can remember, we've discussed C++. And if I'm not mistaken, during your second year, you've had your Java, and then this time on your third year, we're going to deal with PHP. So PHP is another scripting language or programming language for web development, and it's one of the most commonly used programming languages for web development. So for programming, actual programming, so this would be your third programming language that you learn under NORSU. So again, you had C++, and then I think you've had your Java last year, and then this time it would be PHP. So this would be a fun, medyo taas-taas ning lesson. So I'd like everyone to try to study it in advance. Same thing, whatever it is that you've learned in the past, like the variables, um, if else statements, switch, those functionalities or those topics that we've learned from the past during the C++ year or our C++ era, it would be the same thing that we're going to learn with PHP. So exactly how are we going to write if or conditional statements, um, loops with C++, it would be the same thing that we're going to learn for PHP. And after that, we're going to try or we're going to build web pages with PHP. So instead of using HTML, just like what we did last semester, Instead of HTML, we are going to build a website using PHP. And then after that, we are going to discuss about MySQL basics or MySQL. Basically, we're just going to learn the basics of MySQL. Anyway, it's we're not really going to script MySQL nowadays because we have frameworks for that. So, uh, MySQL is a database. It's a database scripting language. So that means or a standard query language, kumbaga. So we'll be able to create database using MySQL. And then lastly, we're going to end our course with building a content management systems. Hopefully, once we've covered all of these topics, we'll be able to build content management system. So when we say, what do you mean by content management system? So basically, a general idea niya is a website that will allow you to create a website. Yan na ba? A website that will allow you to easily change or update any contents inside your website. Okay, di ba? One of the common example would be Facebook. Ang Facebook, matawag na to siyang common content management system because you can change the content of your Facebook page easily. So that's it. Anyway, more of these will be talked, will be discussed in our future lesson. So again, these are the topics. So I would appreciate it if you can learn these topics in advance. Do you have any do you have any suggestions as to the topics that we'll be discussing? Do you have anything else that you would like to add? Okay, I'll take this silence as no. All right, so let's proceed. All right, so class arrangement. So how often are we going to meet? So, like the previous semester, we will conduct a synchronous class at least once a week only. So there might be chance that I won't be able to conduct a synchronous class. When we say synchronous, just like what we're doing right now, you'll be able to hear me right away, di ba? Murabag live online class ba? That's a synchronous class. So our goal is to conduct a synchronous class once a week, but there might be some chances that we won't be able to do so. So instead, I will upload a replay or a pre-recorded class every week to my YouTube channel, and assignment and assessment activities will follow. In case of an asynchronous class, taking the assessment activity on time will credit your attendance for the week. The assessment activities will be done through Google Forms. So, standard procedure, it's the same thing that we've been doing from the past semesters. And also, assignment will be posted through Google Classroom. All right. So after this class, I would like you to fill out this student directory. So it's the same thing that we've had last time. So let me open it up real quick. Let's just discuss the student directory. The student directory also contains the class arrangement and um, class policy, if you can remember. So we're just going to review those real quick before we proceed. Hold on. All right. So on hold on. Wala. Okay. On the first section, it would be about yourself, like the student name, the student ID number, the email address, contact number, complete address, course, subject, and section. So since this is ITS 306, please make sure to select the correct section and subject, of course. So if you are from section A, please select ITS 306A. If you're from section B, please select ITS 306B. Right? And then on the second section, this would be about your gadget and internet connectivity. So please follow the options here. So we have availability of gadgets, so on and so forth. And lastly, this is the virtual classroom policy. So we've already discussed this last time. So please read, and then you have to agree on it so that you can proceed. So let me just read some of the classroom policy. First is create a quiet and comfortable study space. You are about to work, collaborate, and learn. Your environment should be set up for that. Find a location that is free from any distraction by any other family members, pets, background noises, or cell phones. So this is just one of the virtual classroom policies since everybody naman to sa atong kaugaling mo panimalay. Let's just try to make sure that the environment that we are learning virtually would be perhaps um, free from any distraction. No? All right. So please read and review. There are some things here that are very important, especially about the student. Should the student fail to attend three consecutive online classes, both synchronous and asynchronous will be subject for explanation. And if the student failed to provide valid reason for the absences, the student shall be subject for dropping. Okay. Fortunately, I'm not sure with the other instructors, but wala na ako na na-implement last semester. It's because, well, we've had lots of problems. We had a COVID-19 and we had kind of pajutong bagyo, so we just forget about those. But there are just some students that have already dropped. It's because wala gid sila attend the class. But just try to review this, for us to be guided accordingly. Alright, so for our YouTube channel, just copy this link. Basically, I'm going to upload all the pre-recorded classes here. This is to give chance to other students or to our classmates na dili maka-attend during synchronous class, they can still review. Or this is also for you guys who attended, but since our class is more on coding, di ba? Di man nato ma-memorize ang tanang codes right away, especially if you're just looking at your phone. So you can just rewatch it again so that you can review it. Diba? You can copy the codes. Go ahead, Kasusi. Mawag gyapon. Or gyapon. Anyway, I'm going to send you a link every time I put. And next, okay, so course requirements. So it's the same thing from previous semester. So attendance will be 10%, assignment will be 20%, learning activities assessments will be 20%, projects will be 20%, and major examinations is 30%. That's a total of 100%. So I think this is the same thing, same case with the rest of the faculty of IT, CSIT. So here it is. All right. So last, I'm not sure if this is the last, but these are the tools for web development. So basically, these are the applications that we're going to prepare for our computers or for our phones for web development. Okay, so notice that na medyo gamay changes compared from previous semester because our focus on the previous semester was just to design a website. But this time, since we're going to talk about programming, there are a few things that we're going to add. Okay, so take note for desktop PC or laptop computers. Please install the following: install Notepad++ or Sublime Text or Visual Studio Code or VS Code. So either of these three, which ones, which one is more comfortable, or which of these applications you find most comfortable? Either Notepad++, Sublime Text, or Visual Studio Code or VS Code. You can install any of them, right? So to download or install, just follow these links, or you can just Google it. So Notepad++, Google, download. Sublime Text, Google, download. VS Code or Visual Studio Code, download, Google. Right? So again, either of these three. Next is install Chrome or any web browser. So, um, well, that's very obvious. Diba? We have to install a web browser to our computer so that we can check whether or not our codes work, diba? But I would suggest to use Chrome because it is one of the most commonly used web browsers. So we're just going to focus on Chrome. But if you know, trip ni mo gamit og Edge, trip ni mo gamit og Mozilla Firefox, it's totally up to you. All right, and additional tool for web development. This is still for desktop users or desktop PC or laptop computers. Um, Please install a web stack. So if you can remember web stack, basically these are just a group of applications that you know that will take part on serving web requests, web content requests. So what I would suggest to use, you can install individually PHP and MySQL server, or you can install XAMPP or WAMP server. But preferably, since most of my experience are using or yeah are using XAMPP, so I would suggest to use XAMPP. But again, it would be totally up to you. Again, for your for web development using PHP and MySQL scripting, you're going to use a web stack. So you can either install PHP and MySQL server individually, or better, install an XAMPP or WAMP server. All right. So how about if you don't have any personal computers or laptops? Don't worry, you can still use Android phones for web development. So it's very fun. We are very somewhat privileged that this pandemic happened during these times, because if nahitabo pang lang ning pandemic, let's say 5 or 10 years ago, lisod kayo mo study ta web development, because back then wala pa, di pa supported, dili pa ta ka program using our phones kumbaga. But nowadays we the kuan the web developers or application developers have naka-invento sila of ways that will allow us to develop websites using Android phones or iPhones. So we're very privileged, at least. Right? So for Android users, actually it's the same case with Apple iPhone users or iOS users rather. Please install Tribe Edit and then install offline browser, or basically any offline browser or any HTML viewer kumbaga. But I don't think that will be the case today. It's because we're going to focus more on the PHP naman. But still, just try to please install Tribe Edit and offline or any offline browser. In addition, please install KS Web, right? So you cannot install it anywhere, especially kung i-try ni mag-install ni through Google Play Store or App Store, kinahanglan nimo paliton, right? Kaning KS Web. So what exactly is a KS Web? KS Web is saman, is a web server for cell phones, for mobile phones. So it will handle Apache web server. It has PHP programming language, and it can also serve MySQL. So to download KS Web, just follow this link. Kani ako siyang gi-upload sa akong Google Drive. This is a kumbaga gi-crack na ni siya nga application para libre na, because again in Google Play Store you have to pay for it. You can download it free, but you cannot use it. You can only use it when you pay for it, diba? So we don't want to do that. Uh, we are NORSU yan, and most of us cannot afford to spend money on applications. So I have here a cracked version. Again, it's not a legitimate application, but I guess it gets the job done. So just copy this link so that you can download it on your phone. So again, KS Web is kumbaga mura siya XAMPP para sa cellphone. Alright, so anyway, I'm going to teach you how to use it in our future lessons. Okay, so additional tools for iOS users, if wala ay Tribe Edit, you can install Easy HTML and install any offline HTML browser. Additional tools, this is for you to learn PHP sa ibang libutan dire. So dapat HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP focus dapat PHP and MySQL. So for online learning, just go to www.w3schools.com or www.tutorialspoint.com. So these are the para na ko pinakasayon nga um, website, basically websites that will allow us to learn PHP for beginners kumbaga. And then you can also install applications to learn PHP. So first is Learn PHP by CodeLiver, if I'm not mistaken. Just follow this link. Kani siya, mo ni siya. Or Learn CSS. since still we're going to use CSS every now and then. So learn CSS is copy this link. So these are just additional resources for learning um, PHP and MySQL. All right. So that's it for our orientation. Do you have any questions or clarifications, guys? Larara. Okay. All right. So that is for our orientations. I hope you guys. Again, that was just a review. We've already discussed that from the previous semesters. The only thing that we've added are the new applications or tools for web development, and then of course, kuan katong sito kana um, our the list of topics that we are going to discuss. So, mawara to yung mga naan. Anyway, let's proceed to our very first lesson. Hold on, let me open it up. Makita ra gyapon guys on screen. Okay. All right. So today we'll talk about backend technology. So this would be our very first lesson, backend technologies. So basically, again, just to review, last semester we discussed about the front end of web development. So we learned how to code HTML, CSS to design our website. And I've checked your works. I've reviewed all of your works. Medyo nadugay kong submit sa inyong grade. My apologies. Kay kanis procrastinator kayo inyong instructor. Daghan kayong mga activities and I have to check it one by one. Alright, so medyo nadugay ko. But I am glad because most of you have really tried your best to one design your own website or to design the website on your own, and I feel glad because I guess you will all graduate or most of you will graduate NORSU knowing that you're capable of designing websites, hard coding, because again I can't emphasize it enough, everyone can design a website but only IT, comsci, or the self-taught people can code to design a website, diba? So anyway, that was the front end of web development. This time around, we're going to be focusing on the back end technologies for web development. So first is we're going to understand what exactly are the difference between front end and back end in web development. What do you think, guys? Anybody from the class can share us an idea what would be the difference between the front end and the back end? Anyone? All right. Okay, William volunteer. Go ahead. Bato? Si Bato? Okay, go ahead. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you, Brian Bato. That's correct. Okay, so from the term suggest front end. So basically, it's about what is in the front. So when we talk about website, what is on front? So may proper grammar. What is in the front? Okay, so basically, these are the things you will see. Diba? Whenever we open up Facebook, we see pictures. We see the UI or the user interface. So how it is being done is front end. But the moment that we click, let's say, mo send tag message sa imong friend using Facebook Messenger. So how is it able to send the message? So that is through the back end, right? So to get a deeper understanding with the difference between the front end and the back end. Let's think, let's imagine yourself walking into a restaurant, diba? Gutom kay ka, na kay extra kwarta sa imong bulsa, you walk into a restaurant, a fancy one, kumbaga. Okay? So, you are greeted by the waiter and gives you the menu. Diba? Pag sulod mo restaurant, the waiter greeted you and then gave you the menu. Once you already have a place to sit on or a table to sit on. So again, the waiter gives you the menu, you check it. Inside the menu, you see the pictures of foods, description, and the price. Diba? That's what usually, that are the things that we can usually see on a menu. Diba? Na ay picture katong kadalasan sa mga restaurant nato diri locally na ay mga picture sa food, ay description, and yeah, maybe description and the price. Diba? And there are in some other restaurants you can have the options for mga kumbaga add-ons or side dishes, diba? So how do you know what to eat, how much to pay? That will be through the use of the menu, right? And then the waiter takes your order and sends it to the kitchen to be prepared by the chef. Diba? Once you've already decided what to eat, you know, the waiter takes your order and sends to the kitchen to be prepared by the chef. So, dili ang waiter mimuluto, ang chef. The only thing that the waiter do is to give you the menu, take your order, and send the order to the chef. And once the chef gets the order, the chef will collect all the necessary ingredients from the food storage. Let's say nasa sa ref, ikuha niya tanang ingredients necessary, iyang i-prepare, and then proceed to cook it. Alright? So once the food is ready, the waiter gets it from the kitchen and serves it to you. So let's try to let's try to compare first the relationships between the three people. Here, na kadere, you are the customer, you sit down, the waiter gives you the menu, you select the food, the waiter takes your order, sends it to the chef. The chef prepares the necessary ingredients, cook your food, and then sends it to you through the waiter. Diba? So, is there any direct relationship between the cost or ikaw and the chef? None. For you to be able to get through the chef, you need a waiter. Diba? So, imagine a website or think a website as a restaurant. When you first sit down, you're presented with a menu, which may include pictures and description of the items you can order. When you place your order, you might request something specific, like a salad with dressing on side. This is similar to how the front end works. So basically, ikaw, the customer, you choose what food to eat. Um, you request for something more specific through the menu. So basically, the menu is the front end. Diba? And you, as the user or the customer, selects whatever it is that you want from the website or from the kitchen. Kumbaga. So that is the front end. Then the kitchen staff takes your order, gets the ingredients from the refrigerator and pantry, cooks them together, and brings you your food. This is essentially how the back end works. So basically, you requested for a food, they process it in the kitchen, and then they send it back to you as a food. Diba? So una nimo gi-request kay ang food na ara siya sa picture sa menu, but then maybe minutes later, once they process it, they send you back the actual food, something that you can eat. So basically, that is how the back end works. So while the front end web development is concerned with designing of the user interface of the website using web technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc., back-end web development, or also called server-side development, is responsible for appropriate functioning of the website. So again, our focus here in this course is to write the appropriate function or to develop the appropriate function of the website. So it's not just about designing the website, but making the functionality or making the website work. All right. So let's just have a review. This was discussed last semester, how the web works. So I guess everybody's already um, a concrete idea on how the web works. So just a review. So first is every time you click a link or type the web address to your web browser, the browser, which is the client, sends a web content request to a server. As the request is made, the browser uses a uniform resource locator or URL to locate the requested content. So a URL is a web resource that locates the location of the website. So again, every time you visit a website, the client, which is the browser, sends a request to the DNS server through the internet to get the IP address of the website. Once the IP address is acquired, then it will be used to locate the web or the web server where the web content is located. Alright. Okay, madungog lang ko guys. Okay, nawala. Medyo nawala akong connection kadali. Alright, anyway, again, this is just a review. So basically, it's just a cycle of processes on how the web works. So the client sends a request to the DNS server to get the IP address. And then once the IP address is acquired, then it will be used to locate the web server in where the web content is located. And then once the web contents are gathered or, you know, na complete na, then the web server will translate it to HTML form and then sends it back to the client. Diba? So it's very easy to understand. However, what we didn't know is that in the web server there are some things that are being processed before the web content will be converted to HTML before it will be sent to the client. So, and that exactly what the backend is all about. So, for example, we're going to visit norsu.edu.ph. So, first is the client or the browser checks the DNS server to get the IP address. Diba? So, once the IP address is acquired, then the IP address will be used to locate the web server. And then the web server will translate the web content to HTML form and sends it back to client. So just a review. Ngano ganing i-convert man sa web server to HTML before niya i-send sa client? We discussed it last semester. Ngano ganito? Everyone? Nalimot? Sige na, tumag na yun. Ngano ganing nga i-convert sa web server to HTML form before it will be sent to the client. Ano kabalo mo sa answer? Please share. Feel free to share. Da. Legara? Si Legara to? All right, it's okay. The reason why web server will have to translate the web contents to HTML form because remember, our browsers can only read HTML. Diba? Our browsers can only read HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Di na siya ka-read of any other scripts. Let's say PHP, MySQL, di na siya ka-read ana. So that's why the web server will translate it to an HTML form so that tinodong gisulti niya so that we'll be able to see it because our browser can only read HTML. Alright? So anyway, that is just a review. So our focus more is what's going on in this area on the web server. So we know that it will translate the web content to HTML, but how exactly does it work? Okay? So the backend includes servers and databases. Servers control how users access files. Databases are organized and structured collections of data. So remember that in backend includes servers and database. When you say servers, same atong game mo example gay na these are the waiters. So whenever you request a web content, the server will process it and sends it back to you. So aside from server, it also uses databases. So the databases are used for storing information for the website, right? So for example, you post ka og picture using your Facebook. So don't you think that those picture is just floating around in the internet, something like that? No, it should be saved on a storage, and it is being saved on a database. That way you can use it in the future. Let's say for example, ganan kang i-view nimo pagkaugma, ganan kang i-view nimo pagka maybe next week, next month, or next year, however long the Facebook will exist, you can still use it on a long time because it is saved on the database. So here's an example. When you log in into a website, you enter a username or email and password. Let's say Facebook. The very first thing that you're going to do when you open up Facebook, especially on a new device, is to log in. You enter your username or email and password. Now, this information is then sent to the server-side software. So, pag enter nimo sa imuhang login, like your username and password, your username and password will be sent to the server side software, let's say the server of the Facebook, which ensures that your email looks like an email address and your password is structured like a password. If everything looks good, it sends the data to the database to ensure that someone with that username and password exists. Then it chooses what's important and sends it back to you in the form of your user page. So again, enter ka sa imong username, enter ka sa imong password, and if the database, if ang imong gi-enter nga password and username exists just a database, then it will send back to you on your user page. So, for example, na-enter kasi mo username and password and it's all correct, then it will give you the page that will let you know na nakasulod na kasi mong page, sa imong Facebook page. However, if sayop, then mo hatag ko siya nimo og error message saying that your password, either password or the username is incorrect. Alright, so that exactly how the backend works. So let's discuss what do backend developers do. So again, our focus in this course is to design or to be like a back-end developer. So in our previous semester, we learned how to become a front-end developer. This time around, we're going to focus more on how to become a back-end developer. So what do back-end developers do? Here is a list of common responsibilities for back-end developers. First, creating, integrating, and managing databases. Second, using back-end frameworks to build server-side software. Validating data to make sure it's formatted correctly before being sent to the database, integrating user-facing elements with server-side elements to make sure that the information is being sent to the right place so that the server can retrieve it. So it's a little bit of jibber-jabber, so let's discuss it one by one. First is creating, integrating, and managing database. One of the most important attributes of a functioning website is the ability to store and manage information. That's very obvious. So for us to create a functional website, we'll be using information or data most of the time. So we have to store those data somewhere so that we can use it in the future. So that's why we have to create a database and integrate it to our website. When we say integrate, we're going to connect it to our website. The most common database for web development are the following. MySQL. Sayop ni dapat walay space. Okay. MySQL. Then Oracle. And then MS SQL Server. There are tons of database out there, but these are the most common ones. And for our course, we are going to focus on siguro. Siguro, what would be the database that we'll be using in this course? Okay, MySQL. So I'm pretty sure you've already heard that before because you've had your database management system last year during your second sem. So I guess it wouldn't be too hard for us to learn MySQL now. Am I right? Sakto ba ko? Okay, naka-experience mo MySQL before, diba? Okay, that's good. All right, so next is using backend frameworks to build server-side software. As a backend developer, the main responsibility is to write scripts that will enable the website's functionality. Frameworks make software development faster and easier, saving time developers would otherwise spend writing codes. All right, so what exactly are frameworks? So basically, frameworks are ready-made na siya. Ready-made libraries for any programming languages or scripting languages or markup languages. So basically, kama na siya ng mga codes and then all you need to do is just use them. Alright? So, kumbaga, these are just libraries nga gi-prepare na daan sa mga developers. And then all you need to do is just use those codes to be and then apply it on your website or in your web application. Alright? So, the common frameworks for backend are Laravel, Express.js, Django. I haven't really used this. I haven't really used this, but yeah, just for the sake of discussion, these are the most common frameworks. I don't really use frameworks when I'm coding because it takes away the experience of coding. Diba? Although it may sound boring, it may sound pretentious, but I enjoy coding rather than using frameworks. Again, frameworks are kind of ready-made na ba, and then all you need to do is just going to use those codes to be applied on your website or on your application. So I haven't really done it before as far as back-end frameworks goes, but I have used front-end frameworks. So for front-end, we have Bootstrap, Angular, and Vue.js. So I have used Bootstrap a ton of times. So Bootstrap is a front-end framework. Basically, this contains collections of mga ready-made na nga mga kuan ba, nga mga CSS, nga mga JavaScript, so that it would be easy for me to just write the codes or focus more on the functionalities rather than designing, di ba? Last semester, focus guys sa design because we are coding the HTML, CSS manually. But when we are going to use a front-end framework, we don't necessarily have to write the codes too much because we're just going to use the codes that nga prepare na sa Bootstrap or sa AngularJS or Vue.js. Alright? So, that will be our next topic. Our next topic is we're going to learn about the front-end frameworks. In that way, all throughout our course, we're no longer di na ta kinahanglan mag-code sa CSS or HTML too much. Alright? So our next topic is we're going to learn how to use a front-end framework, particularly Bootstrap. So you might want to learn it in advance if you'd like. And next is programming languages. So the third part says here, validating data to make sure it's formatted correctly before being sent to the database. So how are we going to validate the data to make sure it's formatted correctly? All right. So that would be through the use of programming languages. This would be, dito na mo sulod ang ato ang programming, knowledge on how are we going to manage those data so that we can use it for our website. So that would be programming languages. Backend developers use various programming languages to build applications that facilitate communication between servers and databases. Some of these languages include Ruby, Python, PHP, and Java. So these are the most common um, programming languages for web development. So maybe some of you have heard all of it, or maybe some of it, but the most common for me would be the PHP and Python. And here, during on our course, we'll be using PHP as the programming languages. I'm sorry, as the programming language for web development too. Okay. So the PHP or PHP Hypertext Preprocessor, it is a programming language that allows web developers to create dynamic content and that interacts with the databases. PHP is basically used for developing web-based software applications. So allow me to share to you the most recent application or web application that I did. Actually, this was last week. So that's the main reason why, or last week rather. That is the main reason why wala ko commit ninyo last week. It's because I was working with my final requirement for master's degree, and medyo nagkapulike kay procrastinator kaayo last minute na nga magama sa program. So that's why I was working on it, and allow me to share it to you just to give you an idea how PHP and MySQL work. So let me open up XM. So to start working with PHP, this is just to give you an idea. To start working with PHP, we will need a web stack. So the web stack contains the web server and the programming language and the MySQL, the database server. So in our case, we are using XAMPP, and I have to start the Apache, that is the web server, and MySQL, that is the database manager or database manager. All right, allow me to share it to you. Okay, unfortunately, there's something wrong with my. Okay, it's okay. All right, so this is just a very simple example of a PHP web application. So this is what we're going to learn, how we're going to use the web application for, um, how we're going to use PHP as our programming languages and MySQL for web development too. So basically, all of these functionalities are using PHP. So this is a ano siya. Dili ni siya actual na sales invoice management system. This is just a project. So basically, you can add contents to your database using PHP. Notice that the extension is .php. So for example, I'm going to add that. And once I've added those, it will be added to the database. It's like that. And then let's say add new order. So basically, this is a sales invoice management system, or it will allow you to process sales. So for example, paleta og motor, paleta og Bristol BR 400, one, add order. And then the customer is Steve Rogers. Salesperson is si Publico Juleus. Proceed. And here it is. This is the resibo kumbaga. So we can either print it, we can print the receipt, right? So basically, these are the functionalities, or these are the general idea on what a PHP programming language and MySQL can do, right? So that this would be our goal for our course. Not exactly this, because this is more on database management, but we're going to create, like I said before, we're going to create a CMS or content management system. This is not a content management system, but rather a database management system. Kani siya. So on the content management system, we're focused more on CRUD, or creating, retrieving, updating, and deleting contents instead of database management, but still using PHP. All right. So that will be all for today. Do you have any questions? Dahan wala. Alright, so our next lesson, we're going to explore the different frameworks, and then we're going to start learning Bootstrap. Di ko mo to og walay question na adyan na. Do you have any questions, guys? Clarifications?